This is Joseph Waring reporting at the Broadband World Forum Asia in KL. Today I'm joined by Dominic Arena. Dominic is a partner at Value Partners and head of the telco and media practice for Southeast Asia. Thank you for joining me today, Dominic.
Thanks, Joseph. Great to be here.
You know, the subject of this conference is broadband, fiber, and things like that. And we see Asia taking the lead in these NBN initiatives. Can you give us a little insight into how these differ across the region?
Yeah, there are several different models, Joseph, and if we look at countries like Australia, where they've gone down the path of creating a government-linked specific organisation or vehicle to deploy the national broadband network, whereas Singapore has moved more to a private sector type model with government funding, but again a separate company being deployed to roll out the network, and Malaysia really leveraging the incumbent operator Telekom Malaysia with its assets already to then provide 20% of the funding, and Telekom Malaysia using 80% to then deploy their high-speed broadband network. Other markets in Southeast Asia are still not fully formed in terms of where they will go in terms of their policy, but it looks like more of a public-private joint venture type model is going to be needed because the private sector telcos are not going to be in a position to invest on their own for lower ARPU, lower affordability markets.
And these NBN initiatives across the region, do you think that the wireless component is being overlooked?
Yeah, look, I'm not saying it's overlooked, but I do think that if we look from the perspective of developed markets where fixed infrastructure is very widely deployed, you have a great base to start with. You know, a lot of the networks of those telcos in Europe or even Australia were already at a fibre core stage, whereas now in developing Asia, really fixed line in terms of copper is not even deployed widely. So if you need to now take the leap into fibre, that's a huge investment. And therefore I think that wireless technologies, not just mobile but wireless in terms of less mobile but maybe fixed home wireless, is definitely going to have to be part of the mix, and a larger part of the mix than you would get in the developed markets.
Right. With LTE, I mean, it's getting to this, not equal to fiber, but quite competitive with, don't you think?
Yeah, look, I think in terms of the actual customer experience, yes. I think if we look in the situation of a developed market where would you deploy potentially LTE in a suburban area relative to deploying fibre, I think from a user experience perspective, yes, you could definitely have a similar type of experience. I mean, a lot of the time in the industry we talk about, gigabits per second and technical throughputs, but to a customer it might only be the difference between a 20-second or a 40-second download, of a video. So at the end of the day, I think when we think about it from a customer perspective, there's not going to be a large difference there.
With operators sort of desperate to move away from the unlimited, all-you-can-eat flat rate plans, what do you see as the most likely alternative that operators will move to in the future?
Yeah, I think unlimited plans are already becoming a problem because the more you give people, the more they will use, and broadband has shown that in every market. And the rate per megabyte is the key here. It's not about ARPU staying the same or ARPU increasing. If ARPU stays the same, but your data growth doubles or triples, your rate per megabyte falls to a level that becomes unsustainable. So you have to begin to charge for differential services or content that people are using.
And how are operators going to do that? Do you see any successful models taking off right now?
Yeah, some interesting models that you look at are per event type pricing, so charging for different types of content. You want to download a movie and use and have access to high bandwidth to do that. You might be able to do that from a specific part of an operator's portal and be able to get a particular price and a particular bandwidth to download that quickly. In lesser developed markets, so like India, for example, where 3G has just been launched, late last year, early this year, we have prepaid models where people are buying chunks of 3G airtime, if you like. So people have their normal mobile service and they can subscribe to a day of 3G service or 2 days of 3G service, so because people are really wanting to control their spend. So I think unlimited models don't only not suit lower socioeconomic developing markets, but they also don't suit usage, for operators because people are going to end up abusing the offered bandwidth.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Dominic, for joining me today.
Okay, thanks, Joseph.